Scientific knowledge is information gathered through the systematic study of nature. As new scientific knowledge develops, it can be used to address the needs of society or to stir society to action. For example, look at the image of the satellite in orbit above Earth. Science and technology worked together to develop, deploy, and maintain satellites, which provide us with information about weather and communications. These are things our society needs. Next, we'll discuss how science can influence decisions at community, state, national, and international levels as we keep working to answer our lesson question. Science is influenced by the needs of society and seeks ways to meet those needs. As scientists explore ways to meet society's needs, they gain new knowledge that can help them improve existing products and technology or find new ways to address societal issues. This, in turn, means that society is influenced by science. The interaction between science and society is a cycle. Think about cell phones, like this one. Advancements in the design of electronic parts, improved cameras, and stronger cases allow engineers and scientists to constantly upgrade cell phone functions. This is why companies release new versions every year. The improvements in each version of a cell phone affect how people use their phones in day-to-day life. Just think, cell phones didn't include internet technology until a little more than a decade ago. So, to recap, science seeks ways to meet the needs of society. Scientists are constantly gaining new knowledge, and they use that knowledge to improve existing products or technology. They also find ways to address societal concerns. So, to recap, science and societal decisions. Scientific knowledge influences societal decisions. Laws that help protect health and personal safety are constantly being rethought and re-announced to the public. Also, scientific knowledge influences personal decisions that affect health and the environment. It's led laws that help protect health and personal safety and influences personal decisions every day. One example of this is the history of clean drinking water, like the water coming out of this tap here on the side. We'll learn a little more about this later, but first let's take a look at some examples of how science has influenced decisions at the local, state, national, and global levels. Recall the example we discussed earlier of cell phones and their effect on society. Let's talk a little bit about local and state decisions with wireless technology. As wireless technology becomes a larger part of people's daily lives, laws are enacted for public safety. Distracted driving laws are coming up in many cities and communities because they're prohibiting drivers from using handheld cell phones while driving. Nearly all states ban text messaging while driving, and you might see some of these signs popping up on roads near you. Cell phone use is not the only local or state-level law influenced by science. More and more cities and states have banned the use of plastic bags. Only a small percentage of plastic bags are recycled. Often they end up littering streets and waterways or sitting in landfills. Plastic bags harm organisms, especially marine species, which suffer when they eat or get tangled in the bags. For these reasons, bans or restrictions on single-use plastic bags, such as those shown here in this image, sorry, my pen's not circling, have been implemented in several cities across the United States. Seattle, Washington implemented the ban on single-use plastic bags for large retailers, such as grocery stores, in 2011. California became the first state to enact a similar ban statewide in 2014. Those are some examples of how science has affected local or state changes. You're doing awesome on this lesson. Let's keep up the hard work. We've discussed how science has affected decisions and laws at the local and state levels. Now let's look at an example of this at the national level. Science has influenced the national government to take action to fight air pollution. It's important for individuals to have clean air. Polluted air can lead to problems with respiratory health and can even lead to lung damage. In 1963, the Clean Air Act established funding to study ways to clean up air pollution. It led to the Environmental Protection Agency, the EPA, being created to enforce the Clean Air Act. That Clean Air Act was improved in 1990 and cost-effective pollution reduction was emphasized. So we just discussed the importance of clean air, but clean water is also a necessity for life. Science has influenced how clean water is regulated at the local, state, federal, and even global levels. Poor sanitation creates unhealthy and often dangerous living conditions. In 1854, Dr. John Snow traced an outbreak of cholera, a bacterial disease commonly contracted through drinking untreated water, to a single source of water in the city of London. His finding caused changes in waste and water treatment in London. This led to similar changes in cities around the world, which improved public health. Beginning in the early 20th century, U.S. cities added chlorine to public water to sanitize it for use by large communities, which resulted in fewer disease outbreaks. As science progressed during the early 20th century, the federal government recognized the importance of clean water and public health. This led to the Federal Water Pollution Control Act in 1948, which is the first federal law to address water quality. Throughout the 1950s and 1960s, public awareness of water pollution grew. This public concern led to sweeping reforms to federal water regulations. The EPA proposed amendments to the Federal Water Pollution Control Act in 1972, and that act was passed by Congress. In 1999, the United Nations enacted the Protocol on Water and Health. This was the first international agreement of its kind. The aim of this protocol was to protect drinking water, water ecosystems, and human health. You're doing a great job on this lesson. We just learned about how science can influence decisions at all levels of government, from local to global. But those laws are put in place because of how science and innovation change our lives. For example, take a look at this image. You see a traffic jam filled with cars. Cars are now commonplace, but they've only been around for a little over a century. Just as science influences community or even global decisions, it also affects social, political, economic, cultural, and environmental factors, and vice versa. Let's take a look at some additional examples about how science influences society. Bah! Oh, hello, Dolly! We'll learn more about her in just a minute. Throughout history, new ideas and technology have challenged societal norms. Have you ever heard of Frankenstein? Well, the book Frankenstein, or The Modern Prometheus, was written by Mary Shelley and published in 1818. This was a time when scientists and society grappled with the development and use of electricity. Some people believed that electricity would be put to inappropriate uses, such as giving life to the monster in Frankenstein. Today, though, people rely on electricity to power most appliances and to produce light. It's tough to think of a time when society might not be sure about using it. In 1996, scientists in Scotland successfully cloned a sheep named Dolly. Cloning is the scientific practice of copying one animal's DNA directly into another animal. This image shows Dolly's preserved remains, which sit in the National Museum of Scotland. Her cloning led to societal conflicts as well. The announcement of Dolly's birth made people discuss the positive and negative uses of cloning. Some worried that people would create clones to use for emergency organ transplants. Others pointed out that the same science might help bring back extinct species. A more recent example of science challenging society is the use and study of stem cells and stem cell research. Stem cell research focuses on using stem cells to treat diseases and injuries. Stem cells have the potential to grow and develop into different types of cells, so they can potentially be used to help cure diseases or improve recovery from serious injuries. Stem cell research has created some debate, though, because some stem cells that are studied come from human fetuses. Okay, so we just discussed stem cell research, which has stirred much political debate. Another politically driven topic connected to science is how the electricity that people use every day is created. At the center of this political debate is pollution and how human actions affect the environment. One major fuel used to create electricity is coal. Coal is a fossil fuel that is burned to create electricity, and it must be mined from the ground. Fossil fuels such as coal and oil are non-renewable. They form from the remains of organic material. You can see an example of a coal mine in the image here. Coal mining has benefits and costs. The benefits of coal include job creation, 65,000 jobs in 2015 alone, and coal is also a ready source of energy. However, coal also has many negative effects. Coal mining and burning leads to the destruction of the environment, global warming, and human health issues. Coal produces carbon dioxide when burned, which is a greenhouse gas and the largest cause of global warming. This is the heart of the political debate on burning coal. Politicians must weigh the pros and cons to pass new laws and regulations. Like society and politics, economics is also influenced by science. One example of this is the oil industry. Oil is a big business. Oil, like coal, is a fossil fuel extracted from within Earth. People need oil and other petroleum products to fuel cars, heat homes, and produce modern products. As science and technology advance, so does the oil industry. One example of this is fracking. It's one of your vocabulary words too. The image here shows 3 fracking derricks, which are the towers used for extracting oil. So you can see each of those derricks right there. Fracking is a process that involves pumping water into the ground at high pressure to force oil to the surface. This process was first used in the late 1960s, but it was not common. In the late 1990s, a new method of fracking using higher pressures and mixing other materials with water was introduced. Modern techniques now allow oil companies to produce more oil. Science influences cultural practices even though habits are slow to change. People in many developing nations rely on firewood to cook and heat their homes. In some places, access to wood is limited. Furthermore, burning wood in the home causes respiratory diseases that can reduce the quality and length of life for many. Simple technologies such as the solar ovens pictured here allow families to heat water and cook food without having to spend hours looking for wood or breathing in smoke from fires. Introducing solar ovens seems like a simple solution and alternative to wood, yet adopting new tools and technologies, like the solar ovens, takes time and resources. This applies to many cultural practices. People are sometimes slow to make changes to their way of life. This includes the use of solar energy and electric cars. Instead, people still rely on fossil fuels. Another example is wireless technology. As science advances the capabilities of wireless technology, culture changes. This involves things such as the use of social media and how people shop and pay for goods. We'll discuss this further in a moment. Advances in science and technology can come with unintended consequences that damage the environment and cause health problems for all life on Earth. Perhaps the most important example of this is global warming. Global warming is the gradual increase of the temperature of Earth's atmosphere. Unfortunately, burning fossil fuels like coal accelerates this process. As we discussed earlier, people burn fossil fuels in vehicles and to produce electricity. Global warming changes living conditions on Earth for all plants and animals. The burning of fossil fuels to produce electricity and power cars also contributes to air pollution and causes acid rain. This image shows a thick blanket of smog covering Beijing, China. Acid rain, which is precipitation that has increased amounts of dangerous chemicals, damages and kills plants. Furthermore, as global temperatures increase, glaciers melt. So while fossil fuels are important for the use and creation of many technologies that have changed society, the burning of fossil fuels can have negative effects on the environment. Although some technological advancements have hurt the environment, scientists and researchers are coming up with new technology that can help save the environment. These new technologies can have a positive effect on the environment. One of the most important advancements is solar technology. As solar energy becomes more efficient, people can greatly reduce their reliance on fossil fuels. Another similar technology is harvesting wind energy to produce electricity. This helps people use fewer fossil fuels too. Another example is hybrid and electric cars, such as those pictured here. These lessen the burning of fossil fuels in vehicles, which reduces greenhouse gases that accelerate global warming. We'll talk more about some of these technologies in a minute. You're doing awesome on this lesson. Let's keep going. We just discussed how science influences social, political, economic, cultural, and environmental factors. As new technologies are introduced that affect these factors, it's important to see how these technologies, such as the solar panels you see here, affect society. Next, we'll look at the consequences of using technology. As we've discussed, society and science are closely linked. Technology influences the needs and wants of society, but the interaction between society and science is a two-way street. Innovation and invention are influenced by the needs of society. Innovation is the process of turning an idea into a good or service that people can use. People need to be careful with these new innovations, though. Using new technology has consequences. Let's take a closer look at this idea with regard to wireless technology, such as the tablet that this doctor is using. We've briefly discussed wireless technology already, but it is the perfect example of how technology and society are intertwined. As the capabilities of cell phones become more advanced, these advancements influenced society. Since 2011, the percentage of Americans who own smartphones has more than doubled. More than 90% of people under the age of 50 years old now own a smartphone. Innovation and invention have been influenced by the rapid growth of smartphones, but there are consequences to this. Let's look at these benefits and consequences. Some of the benefits are very obvious. Here are the benefits of wireless technology. You're able to stream movies and television, play video games, pay for goods, and it can make work easier. All without wires. People can use cell phones in place of money and credit cards. They can just tap their phones to make purchases. Just 10 years ago, none of this was possible. Furthermore, wireless technology is now vital in many workplaces. It reduces the use of paper and makes data sharing instant. That being said, wireless technology does have some negative consequences. For example, people can become disconnected from society. They might withdraw from real-world situations and then try to present themselves as something else through social media. Another consequence is the danger of distracted driving, which we discussed earlier. Lastly, identity theft and hacking have increased because wireless technology does not always have the most up-to-date cybersecurity. Wireless technology changes the way people live their daily lives. This just shows how societal priorities are reflected in technology. Even though technology helps people's lives every day, everyone must make sure the positives outweigh the negatives. One new piece of technology is hybrid vehicles, which come with their own set of benefits and consequences. On the positive side, hybrid cars reduce the need for fossil fuel. Less fossil fuel use reduces the emission of greenhouse gases. Much of our waste ends up in landfills. Fortunately, about 70% of the batteries from electric vehicles are recycled, resulting in less waste. On the negative side, batteries used for these cars, and all batteries, require metals to be extracted from Earth, such as nickel and lithium. Extracting and producing nickel and lithium, like most resources, involves limiting hazardous and environmentally damaging events, such as toxic spills and destructive mining. Additionally, handling batteries requires care. Many batteries, if damaged, can cause injury or pollute the environment. Disposal of batteries requires special measures. Lastly, the production of these batteries and the charging stations are still quite expensive. Humans have harnessed the wind for millennia. They have used it to sail the ocean, to draw water from wells, and to turn millstones to grind grain into flour. Now, wind turbines are used to produce electricity. Wind turbines dot the landscape. In large collections, they are known as wind farms, such as the one pictured here. Electricity from the wind reduces the need for mining coal and fracking for oil, which cause environmental damage and pollution. Like other forms of renewable energy, wind power reduces greenhouse gases, which are a major source of global warming. The consequences of wind energy include building new infrastructure, storing the energy, and disrupting the environment. Every wind farm affects the immediate environment. Building and maintaining turbines requires much new development. Storing this electricity requires the use of batteries. Batteries, as we just learned, come with challenges that are harmful to the environment. Also, turbines disturb animal habitats and pose a danger to birds in flight. Still, the use of wind turbines reduces reliance on fossil fuels and the emission of greenhouse gases. When looking at technology, it's important to consider the environmental impacts.